Welcome to the Family Dynasty Podcast, where legacy meets leadership. I'm your host, Matt Dewing, family guide, business advisor, and believer in generational purpose. Our aim is to inspire and equip you to lead your family so that together you will experience compounding wealth in all 7 capitals through the generations. Each week we uncover timeless wisdom, cultural dynamics, and practical tools to help you lead with vision, live with intentionality, and build a flourishing family that multiplies in impact. Let's get to work. The dynasty starts now.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Family Dynasty Podcast. Today's episode, Helping Our Children Marry Well, is especially close to my heart. I recently sat down with 3 of my daughters to talk about something that's been a major burden and a great joy in my life as a father, helping our children marry well. You see, at the heart of Family Dynasty is marriage. It's the cornerstone. Healthy marriages lay the foundation for generational impact, raising children, shaping culture, passing on values, and building the kind of stable homes that bless not just one generation, but many. But we live in a culture that often sees marriage as a capstone, something you do once you've found yourself, secured your dream job, traveled the world, or had your fun. Worse yet, marriage is often viewed as restrictive and even oppressive. And raising children, well, that's treated like a burden rather than the blessing it is. One of the most powerful things families can do to strengthen the next generation is to build meaningful relationships with other families who share their vision, especially when it comes to marriage. Historically, dynastic families understood this instinctively. For centuries, marriages weren't merely about personal attraction. They were about shared purpose, values, and generational mission. From royal courts to noble houses, the children of dynasties almost always married into other dynasties. Why? Because aligned values, whether spiritual values, wealth philosophy, cultural values, or family mission, gave these unions the highest potential to flourish. C.S. Lewis once said, "Friendship is born at the moment when one person says to another, 'What? You too? I thought I was the only one.'" This is just as true of families as it is of individuals. When our families find one another, those pursuing faithfulness, purpose, and a lasting dynastic influence, a special bond forms. And from that bond, the seeds of strong marriages can take root. British historian William Durant once said, "The family is the nucleus of civilization." Dynastic families believed this, and so they built marriages that extended and preserved their culture through generations. From the Habsburgs of Spain to the royal houses of Europe, upwards of 80% of marriages were between cousins or members of other dynastic families. While we rightly avoid these extremes today, the principle stands. Shared vision multiplies generational strength. And the data backs this up. Recent surveys show that women are significantly more likely than men to care about marrying someone from a similar income and education level. That's generally not materialism. It's a search for shared values and a stable foundation. But where will our children find those kinds of potential spouses if we're not building relational ecosystems where these values are lived out? Scripture gives us the wisdom to see this clearly. Proverbs 13:20 says, "He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm." It's not just about peer influence, it's about community formation. When wise families walk together, a culture of wisdom takes root. And when our children grow up in that soil, their choices in friendship and marriage bear lasting fruit. Of course, we're not advocating for arranged marriages or aristocratic elitism, but we are advocating for something radical in today's culture, creating intentional community among mission-driven families who want to raise the kind of children that other families would want their children to marry. When like-minded families walk together in community, sharing rhythms of worship, hospitality, and service, a deep trust forms. Our children get a front row seat to strong marriages, godly masculinity and femininity, and multi-generational loyalty. And when the time comes to pursue marriage, They're not choosing blindly from a culture of chaos. They're choosing from among families who know each other, love each other, and have been shaping each other for years. One of the most powerful things families can do to strengthen the next generation is to build meaningful relationships with other families who share their vision, especially when it comes to marriage. Marriage has always been a deeply communal reality. The myth of just two people figuring it out on their own is a modern illusion and a lonely one. Strong marriages still come from strong communities, and strong communities are built by families who take the long view. So, no, we're not calling for matchmaking in some outdated or elitist way, but we are calling families to take ownership of their community. Because the next generation of flourishing marriages will not spring up from isolation. They will spring from intentional, intergenerational, mission-minded relationships. So let's be the kind of families who build dynasties of family total wealth, rooted most substantially in spiritual health and relational capital, shared convictions, and a legacy of flourishing marriages. Let's make it normal again for our children to find their future among friends of our family, where trust, virtue, and alignment aren't left to chance, but are cultivated through years of shared life. That's what dynastic living is all about. Not control, but communion. Not pressure, but preparation. And from that kind of soil, marriages that stand the test of time can bloom. Here at Family Dynasty, we're stepping boldly into a vision to cultivate a thriving community of families who share a faith-rooted, dynastic commitment to generational flourishing and lasting impact. We're building a space where families like yours can forge deep, meaningful relationships with others who are walking a similar path of intentional legacy and dynasty. Whether through our mastermind gatherings, immersive family retreats, legacy-focused cruises, or the exclusive cohort of high-capacity families we serve through integrated business and family advising, our aim is the same: to become a community that champions one another's families, strengthens one another's dynasties, and helps one another's children marry well into shared purpose and generational vision. In this episode, you'll hear a raw, honest, and humorous conversation with three of my daughters, Elena, Ellie, and Megan. Now, Elena and Ellie are married and have embraced the calling of motherhood early in their marriage. And Megan is still single, thriving in college, and deeply thoughtful about her future. Together, we explore what it looks like to build a family culture that honors marriage, embraces early commitment, and invites parental involvement, not in a controlling way, but in a way that strengthens discernment and fosters wise decisions. You'll hear stories of how my daughters met their husbands. Yes, including a sneak attack dating app profile created by their little sister. You'll hear how our family wrestled with questions about singleness, dating apps, and even the girls' discomfort with the thought of matchmaking across dynastic family alliances. And you'll hear us wrestle through what it means to marry well, not just romantically, but wisely, with community, mentorship, and a shared family vision. This isn't a how-to guide or a universal formula. It's a conversation rooted in faith, seasoned with life experience, and driven by one simple conviction: families flourish when marriage is honored, supported, and integrated into the family mission. So whether you're a parent wondering how involved to be, a young adult thinking about what kind of marriage you want to build, or a family leader committed to shaping future generations, this episode is for you. Let's talk about courage, character, courtship, and calling. Let's talk about helping our children marry well for the good of the family, the glory of God, and the future of our civilization. Stay with us. This conversation is rich, real, and deeply relevant. Let's get to work. The dynasty starts now.
Let's see. Front and center.
Okay. Here we are, girls, for podcast number 2. Thanks. And we're joined today by my daughter, Elena.
Hi.
Elena is the oldest of all 8 of you guys. Elena and Ellie have both been married, just celebrated in the last month or two your 2nd anniversary. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get to talk about marriage. Today our topic is marriage and the burden of fathers and mothers helping their children marry well. And to what extent should parents be involved? And how's it worked for us? And what are we learning? And how can we encourage other people to think through this topic of why is marriage important and how do we help our children marry well? So let's just tee it up with why do you guys think marriage is such an important part of a family legacy or of building a family dynasty? I mean, it's kind of a duh question to an extent, right? I mean, the dynasty dies if you don't. Go ahead. What do you guys think?
I wrote down answers so that I could remember my thoughts. Obviously, the basic of marriage creates families, which creates kids and creates generations. But I think that a strong and healthy marriage also provides stability for individuals, like the people who are married, as well as children in the marriages. And I think that place of stability and love is a great road for our values to be passed on and the family culture to also be passed on.
Yeah, my thought was just strong marriages equals strong family. And when you have strong marriages, there isn't the divide between families, the awkwardness of broken families or blended families. So good, strong marriages kind of create that platform for generational strong families.
What about you, Meg?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I didn't introduce Megan because I'm thinking people watched the first episode. But if not, Megan is single, almost 21, going into a senior year at Grove City. So go ahead.
Well, basically the same as what Elena and Ellie have said, but marriage really is the foundation of a family. And so if you're not intentional about the person that you're marrying, you're not going to have that stronger foundation to then build legacy in a family.
Yeah. And for one thing I think about is dynasty. If you're a family on the journey of dynasty, I think to some degree you're concerned with civilizational work. You're concerned with what it means to be a civilization. And what we know and I don't have the latest statistics, but we see across the Western world, across the developed world, birth rates declining to below replacement rates. And we see the Muslim world, we see more than any other religion that the Muslims are reproducing more than anybody else. And so that there's a point in the future where the dominant religion of the world really becomes Islam if things don't change. And there seems to be this inverse relationship. To the more wealthy a society becomes, the less babies they have. And if we're here to preserve the goodness of Western civilization, we've got to say it shouldn't be so. We should be prioritizing family. And I think, marriage should, if God allows, bring babies into it. It's kind of the way God has wired the world. And so I'm so pleased to see that now with 4 of my older children married, Elena, Grace, who's not here, she would have liked to have been here today, but had an obligation. Ellie, the 3 of you already having, within the first year or so of marriage, already having babies. Elena has just announced to everybody, you're expecting your second.
Yep.
And so we're thrilled. And your oldest, Andrew's about
Almost 1.
Just about 1 year old. Ellie's expecting within a month. Yeah.
In 5 weeks.
5 weeks. That's great.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah, and Grace and David have, a 7, 8, 9-month-old, something like that. Yeah. Boy, James. So, wonderful to see you guys embracing this understanding of children. It made me think, Elena's husband Ian was just saying the other day, life is tough when this critter you have is just starting to walk. And he's busy. When he gets on all fours, he's just going. And life has changed for you guys. And you got to lock the cupboard doors. And it's oh, what have I signed up for?
It's a blessing.
Yeah, you go through that phase of, oh, is this worth it? And what I see in both of you is you're saying, yeah, absolutely it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So as your dad, how have I, talk about, how have I done? Have I done a decent job of being involved? I'm in your business to a certain degree, right, when it comes to relationships. And I want to know, but you're also grown-ups and you're independent. Talk about how has that worked for our family? What was the good, the bad, and the ugly? What did we do well? What could we have done better from that standpoint? And this comes from, as we're talking to other people and trying to encourage them, this belief that dads do bear responsibility for helping their children marry well. And I know for me, over the last 5-10 years, I would say, no, probably 10 years or so, it's just been one of the major burdens of my mind and heart to say, what do I do? Living in a rural area where it's been harder, what do I do to really help my children marry well?
Well, I think there needs to be a mutual relationship of respect and trust, where you trust your child and their decisions, and then your child also trusts the parents and their want for your best and, your, holy marriage as the outcome. So like that trust, communication, respect towards each other.
Sure.
In this journey.
Yeah, so prioritizing the relationship that you have.
Yeah, you need to have that as a groundwork to build off from as the relationship develops or whatever. Yep. You need to have a good parent-child relationship to be able to speak that wisdom into them, because if it's not there, they're not going to listen, I think.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So you start that off.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel that a lot of the influence that a parent has for good in how their kid dates and gets married probably comes a lot before they ever meet the person that they're going to date. I think that was the most beneficial thing for me, like when I was younger, just being taught like how the family values marriage, how the family values healthy relationships, and having those values passed down to me and taught to me and really grabbing onto those. I think that was probably the biggest influence that it had once I was an adult and dating Trey. Just implementing those, because a big part of it as an adult is you have to implement those things on your own. Even though the family can be involved, I think if you're not implementing the things that you've learned, like ultimately. Yeah.
It takes me back to, before you answer, Meg, I'm thinking that as you guys were growing up, one of the thoughts was, if my children are going to have a good view of marriage, they've got to grow up in a home that has a healthy marriage. So I think for any mom or dad, the priority is work on your marriage. Display to your children the best you can of what a healthy marriage looks like, of true love and yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I can also say, aside from even that, when I was dating Trey, or even before I was dating Trey, I had mentors in my life outside of my parents who really encouraged me. You should think about exactly what it is that you're looking for and what are things you want to find out about this person when you start dating them. And I feel like having those other mentors in my life was super important. And it really empowered me, like when I met Trey, to feel like I could take that into my own hands and like ask those hard questions and set up those expectations with him, like together as adults in that relationship. And that came from the stuff that I learned, as well as mentors that I had in my life at that time.
That's great. No, it's a great point. We need, especially during this season, sometimes we hear things from mentors and other people that our parents have been saying for years, and we haven't heard them, but a mentor says it, and it's like, yeah. So a multitude of counselors is a wise thing. Yeah. What about you, Meg?
Well, there hasn't really been a lot to be involved with. But I think similar to what Ellie's saying, is just like having the role model there and being single and still being 20. It's like, oh, I don't really have to settle yet. Or ever, but because maybe give it a couple of years. Because I had the example of what like a good relationship looks like, and to be able to find someone similar to like how you and my mom, not my mom, our mom have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to tease you and say this last year in college, you wrote out some goals, and you were kind of half joking, saying, one of my goals is to go on a date this year.
Yeah, my bingo card.
Your bingo and it didn't happen. Oh, shoot.
So,
Well, all in good time. All in good
bingo.
time, Meg. What? So let's tell some of the stories. Like, what does Ellie or Elena tell the story of how you met your husband? How did that go with the family dynamics?
You want to go first, or do you want me to?
I can go first.
Elena's the oldest. You go first.
Yeah, so we met on a dating app, and I don't remember. I was after just a couple dates. Ian came here to meet the family and had spent a Sunday afternoon, went to church with us in the morning, and had Sunday afternoon with us. And at some point, I know you guys started doing a weekly phone call on Monday nights, where it was like half an hour or an hour where you guys would discuss things, read books or whatever. So you were involved in that aspect.
Yeah.
And because we were kind of doing like long distance, 3 hours, it was either he'd come and stay at our family's house and visit our family, or I'd go and stay at his family's house because we were both still living with our families. So it was very family involved, and we'd stay for a weekend or whatever at each other's family's house. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
how we did
and
it.
just to back up, so you were 27 when you were married, right? Were you
Yes.
married at 27?
Yes.
So just part of the fun of this story was the sister who's not here, Grace, was married at 25, and Ellie was married at 23. All three of you girls married in
the same year.
the year 2023. And so Grace wanted to be married, since she was 16. She wanted to be married. And so she, when she got out of college and she graduated early with her bachelor's degree in education, she said, I'm going to go to Haiti for a year and work in an orphanage. And then when she came back, she says, I'm not coming home. There's no boys around. I don't think she didn't say this, but we could see her motive. She's like, I'm not moving back home. There's no boys here. I'm going to go to a bigger place where there's, some Christian men who can discover me. And so she was part of this beautiful community, taught at a Christian school there for 3 or 4 years, and didn't meet Mr. Right. And so finally, and like, what's next? I think, in talking with Mommy, she decided, I'm going to get on a dating app. So very much involved with Janice, and
I helped her
that whole
write up her profile.
Okay, yes, we were all involved. She was talking with all of us. You girls were part of that process. And so I think Ellie even tried it, didn't have a good experience with it. And then so Lena's like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I was not going to do the dating app thing.
Not going to do it.
I was going to be okay being single.
But your younger sister, Kate, who's now 16, says, we're going to sneak up and...
Her and Grace
Keep
together.
going.
Her and Grace snuck up and they put a profile together for you.
Yep, they created
without
one
your
for me.
consent.
I had to go in and log on and initiate that profile for it to be public.
Okay, so
I
they finally
eventually
twisted
did.
your arm.
Yeah,
You're like,
I
and you're like,
eventually did.
okay, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And but I think and we were reluctant. We had a lot of conversations as a family. Really, is this world of using the World Wide Web and dating apps really a smart thing? But we decided, if we do this together with discernment and don't rush into anything, let's try it. And it worked out for you and Grace, both married New Jersey boys. I never gave Rutgers University a thought before, and both of these gentlemen who never knew each other before from different parts of New Jersey, both are Rutgers grads.
Yeah.
It's just
I didn't know.
I did not know
Yeah.
that.
yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think if you're going to use a dating app, you got to be careful going into it. And I could see it not going well for a lot of people. I just really lucked out. First date worked out. But I could see people who aren't emotionally stable or sure of themselves getting caught in the high of always messaging someone new, or just keep looking for that next best person or whatever. I could see a lot of things go wrong with it. So I wouldn't be the first to recommend, try a dating app first thing. But it worked.
So in an ideal world, what would you say is best? Like if there was a ranking of best, second best, third best, what would be the best way to find your spouse?
I don't think there's a best way. I feel that there's different plans for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone's story, however God brings them together, I think is really special for them.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
I would agree with that. I think in practicality, the way it works out is very much that way. Now, I have in mind a hierarchy of that, but maybe...
What are they? What's your hierarchy?
I think the best is within the church, right? Within a church family where you are part of a covenant community and you do life together. Now, that's, at our church, we have about 100 people that come to church, right? That's a pretty small pool. And so it's not going to work out for most of the people in the church. But
And a lot of people are related to us in this area too, which really limits the pool.
Exactly. So, but I think, when that is possible and there is a good match, that's the ideal scenario.
Because you've done life with that family. You know the family, you know the person, you've watched them grow up.
That's right.
For at least a certain period
And
of
they have
time.
a geographic proximity where if the grandchildren are going to share, are going to have both sets of grandparents, they're in proximity. It limits the travel. So there's just some innate better parts of it that really work out practically, I think. I think beyond that, you just kind of keep going out further. It's through relationships that you know and trust, other families that you have affinity for or know their background and know what they stand for and know how their children were brought up. And then beyond that, it's just like, involve the family, involve the community, and hopefully as you're bringing up the kids from a young age, just train them. You are going to go through a stage where your emotions take over and your brain checks out. And so rely on other people in that process to be seeing things that you don't see, and trust others in that process to affirm or caution, and don't just isolate yourself. That's when people make bad decisions. Right?
I think we need to circle back and hear Ellie's story.
We do.
Before we get
Ellie.
off topic too much.
Yeah, so Ellie, tell us your story.
So Trey and I actually met when I was 15 and he was 17. And we went to the same church for a really short period of time.
I didn't remember you met back then.
Yeah, I thought he was really cute, and I introduced myself to him once, and he doesn't remember it. But
But you do.
yeah. And I think that's all. That's the only time I ever talked to him. I was like, I'm Ellie. And he's like, okay.
I did not know that story.
Yeah. And then I never saw him really at all until I was 21 and I went to church with my cousins at that church with Uncle Paul and Aunt Missy. And Aunt Missy had been apparently talking with Trey's mom, and Trey's mom was like, I really want Trey to stay in the area. He wants to move to Rochester. And so Aunt Missy, when she saw me at church, she was like, oh, maybe Ellie and Trey. Maybe he won't go to Rochester, like if he starts dating her. And so she told me, she was like, I think that you guys would be really good together. You should reach out to him. And I just kind of pushed it off because I'm like, I'm not really interested in like reaching out to him. And also I don't even know how I would. But she kept like asking for at least a month or two. She kept asking, like, I actually think that this would be good. I think you guys should talk.
So did she finally set it up? How did the first date happen?
So
Because as I remember that, like when I condensed this down to the simple version, Aunt Missy was the matchmaker. She was the one who thought this through. She kind of put you guys together, and just hear you. She encouraged this, and I think this is another great model, right? Where family's involved in seeing connections. So keep going.
yeah, so she has been like a mentor for me across years. And so after her not giving up on asking me this, I was like, okay, this is someone I trust. This is a mentor in my life. Even though this is something I wouldn't normally do, like I'll reach out to him. I'll just talk to him. So I sent him a message just saying that I had seen him at church. And I said, do you want to get to know each other? And he said no.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
See, now, I didn't know all these details. I thought they just set you up on a date. I thought they just said, here, you guys are going on a date together. That's not the way it worked.
No, she kept nagging me to reach out to him. It would have been easier if she set us up on a date.
He said no.
He said
Okay.
no. He said he was scared, I guess, at the time. But give it like a month, and then he reconsidered, and he was like, why did I do that? That's so stupid. So he sent me a message and asked me out on a date. So we didn't really talk before we went on a date, just a couple messages. And yeah, we went out bowling. And then about a month later, I brought him home to meet everyone. And everyone really liked him. And I think from the beginning, like from when we went on our first date, I told everyone that like who he was, who I was going out with, was trying to be open about all that. And when everyone met him, I think everyone liked him pretty well. He was pretty easy to get along with, and I think it also made everyone comfortable because he was from a community that we knew, and people in our family knew him and his family, so.
Yeah, and I think there was, to compare and contrast the situations with Ellie, there was a whole lot more trust because we knew Aunt Missy and Uncle Paul were in community with Trey for years and knew the family and knew his character and knew his backstory. That gave us a lot more confidence than with Elena and Ian. Ian, from a dating app, right? Any guy could get on there and say anything about himself, and you got to, especially when they're from a state away, you got to go slower. You got to have more time for discernment. And what I love is I was that dad to Ian. I mean, I was not easy. I was tough, and he didn't like it. But
I don't think he minded it. He said it was worth sticking through it all.
I agree. There was times, you know,
Like, I'm not scared of that kind of stuff. That doesn't scare me
we
off.
scheduled a call every week, and I will say he never missed a call, and he would call me on time. And we had some beautiful moments there for sure. We had a couple difficult moments too, but what I loved about the process is I wasn't easy on him, and he never shrunk. He never. Retreated. He never showed any cowardice with that. The one thing I remember when I think it was Grace who got emotional at one point and said, "Dad, none of the boys around here will like us because you scare them all away. You're intimidating, Dad." I'm thinking, am I really intimidating? Right? That was her perspective on me. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember her saying that? And another perspective I think that was tough is you girls grew up in a time in this area where there was a lot more young ladies and very few young men.
Yeah.
It's actually for Kate and Clara coming up.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Kate and Clara should have no problem finding somebody even potentially locally because there's a lot of young men here and fewer young women. But forgot where I was going with that thought. Rescue me.
Grace said that you were too scary.
Too intense.
Yeah.
But also that was when she was younger probably.
Well, but tying it back into Ian's courage, right? Ian, and this is what I wonder about young men today. Where are the young men who say, I am going to win the girl, and I am willing to fight for that and display courage and meet with the scary dad, even if he's scary, and go through the gauntlet and win the prize? And I feel like that's what Ian did, right?
Because if it's good enough, if it's worth something, it's gonna be a challenge to attain it.
Yeah.
If it's really good and worthy.
Yeah. And he did. He won me over. He won me over in every way, and just love the boy and forever will. So great. Where do we go next, girls? What else do you want to discuss?
Well, Megan doesn't have a story to share, but what kind of support or wisdom do you want from the family during the season that you're coming into?
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's a little different for me because I don't feel like I really need to be in a relationship right now, so I don't feel like I need a lot of support in that way. I know for certain
You're
people.
not crying, you're not bawling, saying, "Oh, I'm missing out," which I think, a lot of young ladies at your age, like Grace would have been.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not that she was very well adjusted. I don't mean to say she wasn't. But
Sounds like we're
she was just wired a little differently, where you're not desiring it, but it's not consuming your thoughts.
Yeah. So I don't feel like I need a lot of support right now, but
You're not like set me up with someone right now.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, you're waiting on God and making the best. Which I think, let's talk about singleness for a little bit, right? What if one of the 8 of you children decides to be single? How do we handle that? How do we think through that as a family?
I think that Steering away, I don't know. I think there's a balance between trying to be encouraging and help people if they want support in dating and relationships, but I think it can be counterproductive to try to push that on someone. Like, for example, Megan's really content right now where she is, and I don't think it would be beneficial for one of us to be like, Megan, this is your last year of college. You're running out of time. It's going to be hard for you soon.
Yeah.
Because I feel that I mean, Megan is comfortable and confident, so she could probably just let it roll off her back. But that could, in some people, create feelings of discontentedness, or even like, oh my goodness, like
You could end up settling, right? If I feel like I have to please my family to get married, you could end up making a rash decision.
Right.
Yeah, it does put unnecessary pressure on certain situations.
Yeah.
At times.
I'm sure. Yeah. So I think steering away from language like that, even though I'm sure if it's said out of love and care, but I think that can be counterproductive.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it is for a lot of Christian singles, especially in like the college culture at a Christian school with Ring by Spring. Like there's always a lot of unnecessary pressure on getting married before a certain time or before graduation. And I just think it's like you need to be intentional about not pressuring, not like pushing hard or pressuring your single children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think so. Yeah, and one thing that I was thinking about when it comes to singleness in general in a dynastic family or a family that has this kind of a vision is there can be just this unspoken pressure. Like if we value civilization, we want to have lots of babies, that you could grow up thinking, oh, if I don't get married, I'm going to be second rate in this family. And I think the family would do disservice not to be intentional to say, hey, we're a family system, and some of you may be called to singleness. If you are called to singleness, we embrace you at this family table with all the joy and belonging that we would if you were called to be married. That being single in a family is not second rate.
Yeah, because you still have a bunch of skills and things you can bring to that family table that are beneficial.
That's right.
And it also doesn't stop you from being involved in raising up the next generation as well.
Exactly. Think about all the nieces and nephews and influence you have in that way. Yeah. Good. So, what kind of cultural messages? Oh, well, let's talk about this. One thing is that we as a family have this general idea that early marriage is best. And so Mom and I have had this vision since you guys were young and kind of raised you to expect, think about getting married when you come of age. And some of the research that's come out, in fact, I just have a few statistics. This comes out of Brad Wilcox's work with the National Marriage Project out of the University of Virginia. He's conducted extensive research on the effects of marrying at different ages. And his findings challenge the conventional belief that delaying marriage until one's late 20s or 30s leads to better marital outcomes. Right? This is the conventional belief. And I think the average age now of marriage is 29, maybe pushing 30 years old. And so he has really done the research that challenges that conventional belief. And here's some of the things that he's found out. When it comes to marital satisfaction, couples who marry between the ages of 20 and 24 report higher levels of marital satisfaction compared to those who marry later. Specifically, 81% of husbands and 73% of wives in early marriages, again, here defined early marriage between 20 and 24, report being satisfied versus 71 and 70% respectively among those who marry later. Talks about sexual satisfaction. Early married individuals also report greater sexual satisfaction. For instance, 63% of early married husbands and 62% of early married wives report being sexually satisfied compared to 49% and 51% respectively among those who marry later. And divorce rates, this has been the big thing. Well, if you're marrying in your early 20s, you're going to have a higher risk of divorce. He's found that is not true. Contrary to popular belief, marrying in the early 20s does not significantly increase the risk of divorce. In fact, Wilcox research indicates that divorce rates are comparable between those who marry in their early 20s and those who marry later, provided they avoid premarital cohabitation. So let's mention that one too. Cohabitation factor. Premarital cohabitation, especially with someone other than the eventual spouse, is associated with higher divorce risk. Early marriages without prior cohabitation tend to be more stable. And this last point I'll mention is religious individuals are more likely to marry earlier and avoid cohabitation, contributing to greater marital stability. Religion appears to play a protective role in early marriages. And I don't even have the statistics to say the sociological data is very strong, that those who are married enjoy a greater level of happiness, greater level of economic prosperity, more longevity. So there's just so many societal benefits, again, of civilization building for those who will be married, especially when you have that religious context, when you have a family support structure. So we kind of already talked about how Megan's in those years, and I'm so glad to hear, Megan, that you don't feel the pressure from the family to be married, while also embrace the good of it. So let me throw this out at you guys. Part of the vision for Family Dynasty that we're kind of half joking about, but honestly wondering is, as we build community here at Family Dynasty, is part of that, could it be that families with a similar vision, similar values, right, create a relationship where there are marriages that come out of that community? What do you think of that concept?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. You think of the, there's so many bad examples of this, right? Think of the kings and queens of old, where they would marry between kingdoms, right?
That does sound a little bit like a trade deal, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sure, if there's members of those families and their values align, obviously that's great, but I don't think that it needs to be like do you have someone who's this age? Because we have someone who's this age. Yeah. We'll trade their personality tests and see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're compatible.
Yeah, but this is, again, if parents are going to be helpful in this age where kids are having a hard time even having conversations because everything is so digital. Go ahead, Allie. What's your thought?
Then I think the problem is you should raise your kids to be able to have conversations with each other.
There you go.
I think that's how you fix that.
Sure.
Instead of having two kids who can't communicate and have the parents work on setting them up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's not set up for success.
Yeah.
Now listen.
You keep going.
No, I'm going to keep. I don't have this figured out for sure. But let's just say, is it morally wrong to think strategically? To think of two, for instance, Stephen, my best friend Stephen. He and I were half joking the other day. We're like, hey, your family clan and my family clan, there's strong families in the area. We really need to have a marriage between the two to unite the families, right? It's kind of a strategic move.
Strategic how?
Strategic, like what like how are lands going to be owned by families in the future? How are resources going to be, right? How do you keep families from warring and keep them together? I don't know. I'm talking more in hypotheticals, but I'm also saying, like, okay, so I think I love America and I love Christianity because the church is to be a melting pot of people from every race and also to be a melting pot of people from every economic strata, right? And I think you guys know that even though we have a degree of wealth, we have not expected you guys to marry in a certain socioeconomic strata, if those exist in America. It's, it's character. We want you to marry a man who has a strong character and who's going to cherish you, provide for you, those kind of things.
But let's talk about it in socioeconomic terms. Maybe some of those things are important to a family. Is it wrong? Is it wrong to say we want to be strategic in aligning with another family who has a similar socioeconomic reality in their life?
My question would be, how does that work out? So let's say they do get married. Are you trading lands? How does how does those two people being married
Benefit the families.
is there a dowry? I don't understand that.
Let's just say it's a family from Chicago and a family from Dallas, right? They're not going to be trading lands or intermingling their assets necessarily in that situation, but each of those families, maybe more well-to-do families in those geographies. I'm just I guess what I'm saying is I could see some benefit to that. If you grow up at a certain standard of living, you have a certain way of engaging the world in your social outlets. To go from to stay in those kind of atmospheres would feel more natural. You see what I'm saying? Does any of this?
Yeah.
You guys are looking at me with a blank
In that case, I feel like if Megan were to be like, okay, so for me, in my marriage, it matters to me that I'm gonna have the same level of living. So one of my values for who I'm looking for is someone who's from a family like this. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be, from what I'm thinking right now, I think it might be kind of unfair to place that on someone.
Yeah, I was saying there may be benefits to it, but it doesn't have to be top priority.
Yeah. No, I think I like what you're saying, that it's important for each person to figure out is that important to them. Mm-hmm. If, for instance, one thing that Mom and I tried to do with you girls, at one point when the house was smaller, all 6 of you girls were living in one bedroom. Mm-hmm. Right? There was double bed that was bunk bed, and then another bunk bed in a very average sized room. And we said, you know what, we could do better. We could make something work. But you know what? We're going to force them to live in there because our vision that we gave you guys, we want you to grow up to be best friends and work out your differences. And part of my psychology too was, my goodness, if we make them grow up this way, it's going to be Prince Charming rescuing them someday, even if this guy, whatever. If he doesn't have to make a lot of money to make you girls happy.
Oh, one
Dude, can I share a bedroom with just one other person? You rescued me.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I said a 1-bedroom apartment would be an upgrade.
Exactly. Yeah, that was some of our psychology there. Cool. What kind of cultural messages do we have to actively resist in order to preserve a biblical view of marriage?
So I was thinking, I'm sure there's so many, but the one that I wrote down was that marriage is restrictive, and marriage and kids especially is restrictive, or some people would even say oppressive. Yeah. And I just think that is completely wrong. I feel that having the boundaries of marriage and having like the legal documents of marriage, it feels so freeing to have that. I think it's such a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I manage a wedding venue, and you'd be surprised how many people are like, oh, before I get the old ball and chain, like,
oh yeah, like it's just
they're getting married, but they're still like almost dreading it as like, right. Oh, I'm going to be tied down, locked down. I've got all this, I don't know, responsibility now that I'm married and can't have fun anymore, or whatever. It's just a sad outlook on marriage instead of it being a celebration, like, oh, old ball and chain or whatever.
And it's so culturally normalized to make jokes like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's low-key not a joke to them.
Yeah, that's the cultural message we absolutely have to actively resist to preserve a biblical view of marriage, right? The biblical view of marriage is it is a beautiful thing. It is what leads to a life of flourishing. And, there's many influencers today who are saying, oh, you don't get married because it's going to limit, especially don't have kids, because now it's going to limit your resources and you won't be able to travel, you won't be able to experience all these wonderful things.
Yeah, I think with social media, a big thing that's pushed on young adults is while you're young and single, travel, get that, your dream career job, or, just live your life. You do have fun before you're tied down and married.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the big things, I was just reading an article about one of the reasons that millennials and Gen Zs are marrying later is because of the level of higher education and how it's easier to get it now. And people spend the next 5 years after they graduate needing to work on their career and treating marriage more as like a finish line than part of your calling instead of like a barrier to the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's Brad Wilcox who's using this thought, which is our society treats marriage now more as a capstone, right? It's when I achieved all these other things, then I'll get this capstone to my life. Whereas the biblical understanding is the cornerstone. It's the cornerstone of society. It should be the cornerstone of my life, if I'm not called to singleness. And so you put that cornerstone in, and then you work through it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when Michaela got married. I love what she said because they did get married quite young. She said that her and her husband realized that when they're getting married, it means that they're not going to have the experience of living in an apartment alone or going traveling alone. But she said they decided that it was also really cool because they got to experience all those first things together and how cool it was that they could kind of learn and grow that way. And I feel like that's just a different perspective that people don't have.
I'll tell you what else. So Mom and I were married. We were both 21 when we were married. And so we were young. We were the youngest of all of our peers. I was, Mom went to a 2-year college, so she was finished with college, and I still had 2 more years of college to finish my master's degree. Nobody else in my peer group was, they looked at me like I was crazy getting married. But one of the beautiful things was, I remember a picture when Elena was born. We had a 5-generation picture, right? My great-grandmother, my grandmother, my dad, myself, and Elena, right? And so that is another beautiful thing, that when you marry young, you have the ability for children to have more of a chance to be influenced by grandparents, right? Whereas if in one generation you're not having kids till mid-30s, and then the next generation's having kids in the mid-30s, there's a very limited window for the influence of grandparents. And my life for sure is a testimony to the powerful influence of grandparents. And I think you guys would speak the same way. Your grandma and grandpa are my mom and dad are in their young 70s, right? With, Lord willing, a lot of life in front of them. And they've been a tremendous influence on your lives and your first cousins and siblings.
Yeah, and even great-grandparents. I don't remember how old I was when great-grandma passed away, but I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you remember great-grandpa and great-grandma?
Yeah,
well.
a lot of my life.
Yeah.
My young life was, they were involved in.
Yeah, and the same for me. Great-grandma Bernice and great-grandpa Abel. I remember them well. So, yeah. What can other families practically do to create a culture that encourages wise, timely, and a holy marriage?
I kind of said this earlier, but I think what's so important is it's the work ahead of time, I feel. Megan said or maybe Elena said, having a good relationship with your kids first off so that they trust you to speak into their lives, but also passing down the values on what a healthy relationship is, helping them figure out what are good things to look for in a partner. And I also think, especially as they get older, encouraging them to have mentors and people who can speak into their lives outside of just the parents. I think that is going to set them up to have success, hopefully, when they're dating and looking for someone.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. I was thinking our community is really good at modeling that because there's a lot of young couples in our community. So the younger people are seeing that modeled. Mm-hmm. So for those people that aren't necessarily in a community, maybe search one out that encourages young marriages, that have young, healthy couples and like just be talking with your kids about it and yeah.
Yeah, it's great. At church right now, it's so wonderful. We had all these young people who just can't wait to come to church on Sunday because their friends are there. And we've had in the church 4 babies. Halfway through the year, we've had 4 babies, and there's 4 more expected
By the end of the year.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a church that is celebrating life. What do you think, Meg?
Another practical thing, I think, is involving young adults in adult life and kind of bringing your kids into decision-making and homemaking and these things that you can kind of teach them while they're still young, preparing them for when they do get married.
Yeah, that's awesome. Fantastic. Well, this has been a great discussion, girls. Any last thoughts we want to leave before we sign off? I'm hoping this is just part 1 of part 2. Next time I'd like to get maybe my brother Nate and Aunt Delphine, Mommy and I do a little more talking about this topic. Any other thoughts?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I think that was a good conversation.
Yeah, thanks for talking about it today.
Yeah.
All right, God bless.
Thanks for joining us on the Family Dynasty Podcast, where legacy is built, not just inherited. If today's episode helped you lead your family with greater vision or purpose, share it with someone else who's building a legacy that lasts. And remember, you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the power to get wealth, that He may establish His covenant. Deuteronomy 8:18. Keep building with faith, leading with love, and living for impact. Your family is your greatest calling.